Today, we're diving into one of the most ambitious and, yeah, one of the most controversial projects on the internet. It's called Anna's Archive, and it's trying to build a searchable catalog of pretty much every book and scientific paper ever written. And it all kicks off with a really powerful idea.
Just think about that for a second. What if all of humanity's knowledge, every book, every discovery, was just available to anyone, anywhere, with no paywall? That is the core promise, and it's also the central conflict of this whole massive digital movement.
So to really get what Anna's Archive is all about, you first need to understand this term, shadow library. Basically, these are huge, unauthorized online collections of books and articles. They operate in this legal gray area, all to give people access to information that's often locked away behind super expensive subscriptions or tough copyright laws.
Okay, so where does Anna's Archive fit in? Well, it popped up in late 2022, right after a big takedown of another famous shadow library called Z Library. But, and this is important, it works in a very, very specific way. The people who created it make this one crucial distinction. They argue that Anna's Archive isn't actually a library at all. It's more like a giant universal card catalog. See, it doesn't store any of the copyrighted books on its own servers. Nope. Instead, it just indexes the metadata, the title, the author, the ISBN, and then it just points you to where the files are being hosted by somebody else. This little detail, that's their entire legal defense. But, okay, that whole "we don't host the files" thing creates a pretty big problem, right? If they're just pointing to a bunch of files scattered all over the internet, how does any of this actually hold together?
I mean, seriously, think about it. If you're just following a link to some random file out there, how can you be sure the PDF you're about to download is the actual book you want and not, a corrupted file or something much worse? Well, the answer is in a pretty simple but really powerful piece of tech. It's called an MD5 hash. The easiest way to think about it is like a unique digital fingerprint for any file. You can take any file, a document, a picture, anything, and run it through this algorithm, and it spits out a 32-character string. Now here's the cool part. If you change even a single bit in that original file, just one tiny comma in a 500-page book, the fingerprint changes completely. And this is what the databases of these shadow libraries actually look like behind the scenes. It's just lines of text. Each entry has the book's info, and then, right at the very end, you see that long string of letters and numbers. That's the fingerprint. That's the MD5 hash. So when you download a file from anywhere, you can check its hash against the one in the database. If they match, you know you've got the real, unaltered deal.
So, on the one hand, yeah, this tech is used by people to verify bootleg books. But here's what's so fascinating. The European Union Reference Laboratory for Salmonella uses the exact same MD5 hash technology to guarantee that their critical scientific data hasn't been tampered with. It's just a powerful tool for building trust, no matter who's using it.
So that's the how. But what about the why? Why go to all this incredible trouble and risk these huge legal battles? To get that, you really have to look at the philosophy that's driving the whole project. According to its anonymous founders, the mission is really two things. First, preservation. They want to create a backup of all human knowledge so it can't just be taken down or lost. And second, access, to make all of that knowledge available to everybody. They're very open that a lot of their inspiration comes from the late information activist Aaron Swartz, who was a huge champion for open access. And it all really boils down to this one core belief, this famous mantra you hear all the time in these circles: information wants to be free. The argument is basically that copyright has just gone way too far, that it's locking essential knowledge behind paywalls. And they believe that freeing that information is a moral duty, an idea that, of course, puts them on a direct collision course with the entire publishing industry. And as you can probably guess, that philosophy has put Anna's Archive in the crosshairs of some of the most powerful organizations in the world. The legal battles they're fighting are global and they are intense. I mean, just take a look at this list. From the US, where they're being sued for scraping a massive library database, to the UK, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, you've got publishers getting court orders to block the site left and right. This isn't just one angry company. It's an organized, well-funded international fight. But here's where the story takes a really wild twist. It's not just individuals who want this access. In a completely separate lawsuit against Meta, internal emails came out that showed the company had downloaded over 81 terabytes of data from Anna's Archive. And why? To train its large language AI models.
So on one side, publishers are fighting to shut it down, while on the other, one of the biggest tech companies on Earth sees it as a gold mine for building the future of AI. You can't make this up. When you put all this together, the tech, the philosophy, the global legal wars, it really brings us to the staggering impact of the archive and what it all means for the future of information itself.
As of early 2025, Anna's archive was seeing more than 650,000 downloads every single day. The demand is obviously off the charts, but to really wrap your head around a number that big, you need a little context.
To put it in perspective, that's about 10 times the estimated daily distributions of the entire New York Public Library system, one of the largest and most respected public libraries in the world. The sheer scale of the global appetite for this information is just immense.
Ultimately, the very existence of a project like Anna's archive forces us all to ask a really fundamental question. As more and more of our collective knowledge becomes purely digital, who gets to decide who has access? Who controls the flow of information? When it comes to the library of everything,